This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. Fan.
Bonus Box is back on the Fan. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. 10 our keywords and learn more. Head to KFAN.com. Bonus Box is presented by BigDeck.com.
News on the march in the 5 o'clock hour, which I think is open after Top 5 at 5. We are, at least at this point, guest-free. That can always change depending on breaking news and other issues. We've got some good items, I think, for news on the march today. Some very meaty items as well. Okay, so when it comes to reckless, one could argue, behavior to save your animals, to go back into a dangerous flood zone, not to find your children, but to find your dogs, lots of opinions have come in. A couple of them pretty nuanced, I might add. This is from All the Best Monikers Are Taken guy. There is no disaster, natural or otherwise, that could keep me from attempting to save my dog were she in peril. And I would have words with anyone who argued the contrary. Here's the other side of it. Has to be considered, has to be at least discussed and acknowledged. If you have a family, i.e. a spouse, kids, or otherwise, it's completely irresponsible to go back and get the pups. You owe them your life, and going back to get them isn't worth it. If the pups are your family, and that's how you view it, or he viewed it, then there's no other option but to go and to get them. I think that's pretty reasonably expressed. Did the man bring any rescuers with him to save his dogs? If he risked his own life and no one else's life was put in risk, then I've got no problem with rescuing his dogs. But if he has others join him without giving the true story, that changes everything for me. Just glad to hear some happy stories coming out of this horrendous event. That's part of what we were alluding to. Well, actually, it was a text earlier bringing up that same point, that if your act in this case puts other individuals in peril who otherwise wouldn't have been in peril, then you, I think, can rightly call it reckless and selfish. As I said, I'm not here, if that's taken away, if that possibility is eliminated, to lecture on the subject and to tell somebody you can't do it. Yes, I am a dog person, but this doesn't, I guess, just have to be about dogs. But I think the devil's in the details. Like you said, who else is in peril? What are some of the other, what's sort of the backdrop to this particular issue that involves maybe taking away rescuers who could have been saving human lives elsewhere, especially if they were deceived. Now, I didn't read that part of the story, whether they helped or whether this guy just did it all on his own. 701 guy writes, what would Steve Miller do? That's very good. Well, what would the Steve Miller position be on this? Steve Miller, that's a callback to what we started the program with. It's the beauty of this show after all these decades is there are occasions when you can't possibly predict what you're going to start a program with. And I can't, in my mind's eye, believe that at any point I thought there was a chance we would lead a show or have the opportunity to lead a show with a story about a famous pop musician announcing ahead of his entire fall tour that he's canceling all of it. Not, he claims, because of ticket sales not going so good, but because of weather calamity. But that's where we started the show, and that's the callback. What would Steve Miller do? I was walking with my dog when you asked the question. He's cute, smart, lovable, my best pal. But when you asked the question, I looked at him and said, you'd become a hot dog. That would seem to indicate he's saying you're on your own, right? That I love you, but there's limits to what I'm going to do for you. If I had the means to, this is from Abby, if I had the means to get in and out of the dangerous area, I would absolutely go get my dogs. And that's speaking as someone who doesn't even have a dog yet. The idea of a pet thinking they were abandoned, especially in scary circumstances, makes my heart hurt. Completely his decision so long as he doesn't put other people in harm's way. We've heard that a lot, and I think that's fair. No one can judge anyone's love for something. Just glad this story ended up one of the good ones. Dan, I'm doing a point break dive out of an airplane without a parachute to save my cat. I would never question the guy going in for his dogs. That seems like a lot to ask, to go to dive out of an airplane without a parachute.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Because then, by definition, you're not going to, if I don't know how you're going to save the animal, but secondly, even if you do, you're going to be dead, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Realistically. So I don't know how that, I don't know. The dog doesn't win either. To quote Billy Madison, writes Andy, you get off your ass and find that bleeping dog. I've got 2 dogs, 3 cats, love them all with all I have, would put my life every single time. My wife would risk it for the animal every time. Regarding the guy who saved his dogs from the flood, the only real beef I'd have is that he could have put himself in a dangerous situation that required rescue. That's the other point. Let's say other people didn't go with him, but once he gets there, he's flailing. Somebody else sees him, and then the rescue operation has to come back in and risk themselves in a place where otherwise they might not have. That's always where it gets trickier. It's harder to have. It's harder to make it a slam dunk with the nuance, with some of the particulars of what is taking place on that occasion, in that particular situation. I'd 100% go back into a flood or a burning house for our 2 Pyrenees, but if we just had cats, they would be bleep out of luck. Wow. Are you a cat guy or a dog guy? I don't even remember.
I can do either or.
One?
Yeah. I have a couple of good ones here that I start them.
Oh, perfect. Do it. You grab them.
There's one serious and one not serious. Right. The 970 guy says, I've been there in a sense. I had a hunting dog break through a frozen river going down a pheasant in December in South Dakota. She held on. I stripped to my boxers, broke through the ice with my elbows to get her. The look on her face when I finally got her, I'll never forget. We were miles from the truck. Both Hazy, his dog, and I, or her dog, were hyperthermic by the time we got to the truck. Man. I knew it was a gamble with my life, but I was not willing to let her die when I had a chance, albeit dangerous.
That's impressive. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, that's very good.
And then the snarky one is from Randy, who says, I don't know if it applies, but Jordan Addison used his dog as an excuse when he was speeding. So he was risking his life trying to get to the hospital.
Are there any other... What if you took dogs and cats out of the equation? What's the third most popular domestic pet that people would have? I have absolutely no idea. Would it be a rabbit, a bunny rabbit?
That was the first thing I thought of. Maybe a ferret.
Ferret. Oh God.
Or what a fish.
I can't see risking my life for a ferret. I'm sorry. It may not even be fair to the ferret. It's a living thing. But I couldn't do it for a cat either. But I wouldn't have a cat, so it's irrelevant. It doesn't really fit in. But I know there are people who are very emotional about their cats. There's no question. 952 guy writes, is Jordan Addison suspended? We're going to get that question answered because there is an update in his court case by Kevin Seifert in about 15 minutes or so. So hold on for the very latest on the Jordan Addison saga. Bonus bucks time now, I believe, though. What do we got?
Yes, the fan at BigDeck.com going to give you a shot to win bonus bucks of the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. The keyword is cash. Keyword cash. KFAN.com. Keyword cash.
The Fan.
Celebrate the return of football with the Minnesota Vikings at training camp. The fun kicks off Saturday, July 26th for Back Together Saturday. Score tickets today. Vikings.com/camp.
I like animals more than humans, so yes, 100% is I risk my life to indeed save them. Seifert t-shirt idea. Where is Steve Miller? I really like it. I just don't know if it would have staying power. It might be too inside for like a single. If we could do, this is my dream. I think it's probably unrealistic. If we could manufacture a small number of t-shirts every day with a different message on it, that's my dream. Every day a different one, because then it could be timely to something that just took place. So if one of, how many days does the Great Minnesota Get Together? Is it 12?
Something like that.
I don't remember how many. I should know by now how many. If one of the days we were out there, that was the t-shirt, be outstanding, wouldn't it? Postal Gal writes, I wouldn't leave my pets in the first place. Well, the assumption is the individual didn't have a choice. He got separated from the dogs. It wasn't he just abandoned them, although I don't know. Dan, extreme dog here. I can't judge in that position any more than I can tell them what they should value most about their lives. Very well put. This decision could change as a person ages, what he's experienced, and where they are with their lives now. This is good, deep thought philosophy right here. I'm 73, and I live alone with my 2 dogs. As my health has deteriorated, I would go to rescue them in a heartbeat. The companionship, I'm guessing, is incalculable to that individual. You can't. There's no analytic for it. Never has been an analytic for it. Never will be an analytic for it. Gonna let that go, I think. Wasting your time on this when we have real things to talk about in this country. That's 612 guy. God bless you, 612 guy. Love you. We mix and we match. And we do so because, at least according to the philosophy of this show, if we give you nothing but a steady diet of serious, in-your-face, life and death issues, you know what happens? People turn off, man. They get their eyes get blurry. Their eyes go cross-eyed. So we pick our spots. Hell, we spent much of yesterday's show on some very serious subjects. Had Kessler on some of those as well, but long before that, discussed the new moniker, new nickname for the state of Minnesota, the land of 10,000 fraud cases. There's plenty, but you got to understand. Well, no, you don't have to. You don't have to understand anything. You can want a steady diet of what that individual might want. But we, generally speaking, prefer to go the mix and match approach. Dan, you should get Steve Miller on the show and discuss. Have a conversation. You are a master of that. Fair shirt idea. I've been asked for T-shirt ideas, so I appreciate those coming in. Still right-sizing the payroll after all these years. That's a good one. I'm going to have to... one thing I haven't learned since we've gone to the Bradshaw and Brad KFAN text line is to how to forward a text to save it. So what I end up doing is I end up taking a picture just to have it, which is it doesn't seem like it's an unwieldy way to do it.
That's a good one.
It's okay, it's convenient, but I'd rather actually be able to, forward it. Oh, speaking of that, this is kind of speaking of nothing being all that vital segment. That's what this probably is. Let me see if I can find what I'm looking for here. Did you watch any of the ESPYs last night?
I've seen the opening monologue. I saw one of the like sketches that they did about the tush push.
Okay.
But that was about it.
That was about all. Okay.
Yeah. I liked the it sucks that people were so, just sticking the you-know-what and then wouldn't laugh at some of the jokes. Well, I thought it was pretty funny.
That's exactly what I want to get to right now. So the what's the name of the individual who did who was the host?
Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis is his name, correct?
That is.
I thought I had it here somewhere. I don't know him well. But you went exactly where I was going to go. That we have... How often? Well, first of all, I'm hoping that ESPN is not repudiating his appearance. Are they? Are they standing tall?
They approved it. They better stand tall.
But that doesn't always happen.
Well,
as you know, sometimes after the fact, you get enough heat and you go, well, that was inappropriate and we apologize for... So doesn't he fall into as I understand it, he falls under the classification of if you hire him, you can't possibly act annoyed or surprised at what he delivers. You can't, by definition. You're back to, you don't have to hire him, right? And again, I thought maybe we were progressing out of this, but maybe not. I will say it wasn't as if he got shut down. He did his whole monologue. He spoke throughout. He was introducing throughout, whatever the case may be. But I just shake my head and say this is sort of why we're in the predicament we are, that we're horrified. How dare he? And that doesn't mean you have to approve of every one of his observations. You may even think some of them are over the line. But you're back to, you can't have it both ways. If you think he had value, presumably part of the value is you didn't have any idea what might come out of his mouth. Now, what I will add is I do worry sometimes that individuals in his position end up trying too hard to fulfill whatever they're supposed to represent. You know what I'm saying? It's the old deal of just because you can, well, and not in this case, but let's say for the sake of discussion on a podcast, just because you can, or on a comedy show, routine, at a bar or at an arena or at an auditorium, just because you can swear as often as you want, doesn't mean you're obligated to. Doesn't even necessarily mean it's funnier the more often that you use the F word, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes people try too hard to match their reputation, where I would say, do the material you think fits. Do the material that works for you, and some of it's going to be challenging, then it's, some of it's going to be challenging. I don't think, though, for me, I don't think when it comes to politically incorrect monologues of this sort at award shows, setting a certain tone. I didn't watch it last night, and maybe if I did, I would disagree. But I don't think the Ricky Gervais monologue, the last time he hosted was at it wasn't the Grammys, it was, I think, the Golden Globes. Whatever it was, the last time, that's never going to be topped. I occasionally am so moved and amused and inspired by that Gervais monologue, I'll just call it up on YouTube on a given Tuesday at 10 o'clock and watch it again. It was so on point, and it utterly destroyed the Hollywood beautiful people. Just skewered them. Just scorched them. I don't think I don't think it can ever be topped. I don't even know. Is Ricky Gervais, is he still around?
I don't know. I don't know what he's up to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the one, definitely. But yeah, there were a few things, and he took shots at both sides. Shane, he wasn't,
Equal opportunity ripper?
Oh, yeah. He did a couple Trump bits, but he also celebrated that Megan Rapinoe was not at ESPYs. So, he went both ways.
That's
with
okay.
It. Yeah,
Should be able to. Should be able to puncture the pomposity of these individuals the same way as you do with actors and actresses and directors. John from Hastings, people need to lighten up, let your guard down once in a while, enjoy comedians telling jokes. At least not be surprised that comedians are going to tell jokes. you can't be all that surprised. I don't think anybody walked out, though. I don't think it was anything that bad. I think there were just a lot of some of those nervous tension laughter moments. There was plenty of that with Gervais. There are a few murmurs. Dan, this is remove the interim label guy, I should say. Shane Gillis is the best. ESPN knew what they were getting, just like the Golden Globes knew what they were getting into when they hired Gervais. That's Greens and regulation guy. He even ended last night his monologue, he being Gillis, with a joke. It's the old Norm Macdonald OJ joke that Norm made when he hosted, and it got all kinds of. I don't think he ever hosted again, and there was a lot of pushback on that because obviously in that case 2 individuals were murdered. But yeah, I think he tried to pay, as I understand it, pay homage to that joke and retold it in his own way as well. How about this T-shirt idea? This isn't bad either. Big, beautiful bumper to bumper. Oh, that's timely. That kind of works.
If it gets passed.
Dan, hit me back to verify I'm not blocked. Common may have blocked me. That's 612 guy. That's, I think the blocks are based on logins.
They are.
Are they not?
I have confirmed that. Yeah.
That's interesting. So, we have not, by definition, we got the text, so we have not blocked you. We're not going to block our next guest either. Kevin Seifert with some breaking Minnesota Vikings news, and we'll find out how his trip to the ESPN campus went the last couple of days. Don't go away.
If you want to chime in what's happening in your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rates apply.
We've kind of moved some of our Vikings pieces around the board this week. Seifert often joins us on Tuesday. 2 days ago, it was Ben Gessling because Seifert was otherwise detained. Now, I guess by logic, we would have waited to put Seifert on tomorrow, but because that's Ben's regular day. But given that there's some semi-breaking Vikings news, we thought let's get to it when we can. Seifert joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Most importantly, were you in attendance at the ESPYs last night? I assume, California?
I was not. I was on my way back from Connecticut. Did not get the invite to the ESPYs. Probably wouldn't have gone anyway. I'm very busy. I have a lot of things going on, both at home and abroad. Yeah. And so it likely would not have happened regardless. But no, I did not go to the ESPYs.
Were you... If you watched any of it last night, were you offended by the Shane Gillis opening monologue and his ongoing introductions?
No. I don't know if I saw the entire thing. I've seen a lot of the highlights of it, and it was I'm okay laughing at uncomfortable things. If it's too comfortable, it's probably not going to be very funny, at least to me. And so I had no issues with it. It's still, I'm trying to, there was one, what was the guy's name from Saturday Night Live that recently passed away?
Norm Macdonald.
Yes, he had the all-time
the
most
OJ?
uncomfortable
Oof.
ESPYs opening monologue, and I don't think this one came close to that.
No, and I think he actually repeated it in homage, I'm told, late in it. And in fact, I read somewhere overnight that McDonald never was on that program again, never hosted again, in part because supposedly Don Ohlmeyer was very, very bitter about that particular joke. But yeah, that one still seems to be the one that takes the cake. All right, so we're going to get to your time at the ESPN campus because I'm always fascinated by what exactly they do with you guys there. If they reprogram you again, or how cult-like it is on the campus. But let's get to the breaking Vikings news. The Jordan Addison case that, at least from a legal standpoint, is now apparently settled with his decision to plead no contest to something called a reduced wet reckless charge. What do we know about what that means exactly, that reduction? And then we'll get to how we expect this might play out in terms of National Football League punishment. What is a wet reckless charge?
So essentially, wet reckless is a notch or two below like a formal DUI. It means that you drove recklessly and alcohol was involved, but it doesn't specify whether you were over the legal limit or not. And so the punishment is less severe. I believe he has 12 months of probation that he can get down to 6 months instead of having like 3 years of probation. It's a $390 fine. And I think the fine would have been more, obviously, if he had pleaded guilty or pleaded even no contest to the DUI charges themselves. And so there's less of a discipline, and you're quicker to sort of expunge it from your record through this particular plea. But since it still includes driving and alcohol, it still makes him subject to the NFL's personal conduct policy, which has a baseline of 3-game suspension absent what it calls aggravating situations, one way or the other. And so whether that the plea means that it would be less than 3 games, or stay at 3 games, or be nothing, 1 game or 2 games or nothing, that's all up in the air. I don't think it's going to be nothing. But the NFL today said it had been monitoring all along, and the situation remains under review. So I would imagine we're going to know something fairly soon. If we don't hear anything, that probably means there was a suspension and then an appeal.
Right.
And they wouldn't necessarily announce it prior to the conclusion of an appeal if there's going to be one.
Okay.
And so that's where we're at. I think that it's hard to speculate because this is a kind of a situation we haven't encountered too often, but the feeling is that, he's been in line for some level of NFL discipline, and that nothing that happened today really changes that.
So according to your reporting, the NFL has said Addison remains under review, and their statement was, we have been closely monitoring all developments in the matter, which remains under review. It's interesting to hear you say that. So, in other words, whenever the announcement comes, the appeals process could have already taken place by then.
Yeah, if we get an announcement that Jordan Addison has been suspended for X number of games, then and that comes formally from the NFL, then that means the appeal has already taken. Possible that something could leak out, or somehow otherwise we find out what's going on before the conclusion there, but that is often what happens in these situations.
And is, like you said, the rule of thumb is we should not be surprised if it's a 3-game suspension. We don't think it should be much bigger, but we don't think. That's usually the number.
That's the baseline number,
okay.
And there's many occasions where players, there's extenuating circumstances one way or the other, and so that number can change. And so I don't want to lock in and say like he's likely to have a 3-game suspension. I just don't think he's going to get off with nothing. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. So if it ends up being 3 games, then we're talking about where is why can't I find the schedule? I thought I had it right here. Well, see, the problem. Vikings.com schedule, it's actually difficult to read it. I don't understand why they would make it that tough. But he would miss.
When I see Ziggy, I'll talk to him.
Yeah, talk to him about it. Come on, man. It's a big-time operation. So he would miss the opener at Chicago. That's the Monday night game. Atlanta here and Cincinnati here in his first game. In theory, then, would be the Sunday night game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, correct? And that is of course overseas. The first of the 2 overseas.
Sunday morning game. Yeah. So
Sunday morning.
If it's 3 games, then he basically joins them on the way to Ireland, and then stays in London. And so that would be the way it would go. If somehow there's an appeal that takes a long time, maybe that gets pushed back. But if he ends up, I kind of am guessing that if there's a suspension, it'll be at the beginning of the season, and it'll make good sense for the Vikings to get it out of the way, and probably for him as well, and not have it linger into games that end up mattering maybe more in the playoff race.
So while you were on campus, it appears you had a conversation with Danny Graziano on JJ. This was on NFL Live. How did that go, and what was the Seifert? What's the message that Seifert delivered on this front?
It was great. We timed it up so that it happened during the time, more or less, that I would typically come on bumper to bumper, because I didn't want you to think that I was just blowing you off. So I said I agreed to go on NFL Live as long as it was in the 3:30 Central hour, and
Perfect.
It was.
Yeah, that's it.
So
that's
I kind of thought maybe you'd listen in on the radio, but I don't know what the rights.
Yeah, I think that would have been technically a violation.
Yeah,
I mean, we could
would
do
have allowed it.
But you think you would have waived any kind of legal?
If it were up to me,
if it was up to you,
usually I don't think I get to make that call. We just talked about it was an NFC North report, so all four of the NFC North reporters were in studio, and we agreed that the topic du jour for the Vikings now, today, tomorrow, yesterday, every day, probably for the rest of the summer and into the season, is going to be J.J. McCarthy and what we can definitively say about him and what we can't. And I just, they asked me, like, what have I seen from him so far? And I named two things. I said that, and I think we've talked about them, is that to the extent that there was any question about his arm strength, I think he answered that in OTAs, really last year's OTAs, to be frank, and this year's as well, and this year's minicamp. And even Justin Jefferson was saying if he learned one thing about J.J. McCarthy already, it's that the arm strength is plenty good, and that if anything, he's just going to have to learn when you do throw it as hard as you can, and when you shouldn't, and when you should take something off, and when you should put more touch, and all that sort of thing. And so we talked about that, and we talked about sort of the personal magnetism that I think that anyone who spent any time around JJ has already sort of picked up on. I think people who are Michigan fans already knew this, and anybody who's encountered him in town to this point, and he's just kind of a guy that people want to be around, people want to talk to, they want to be led by, they want to entrust the team to. And so, Harrison Smith, I think, said, who's a decade and a half older than him, they have lockers right next to each other in the locker room, and he said that this spring that he really liked spending time around him, called him, I think, an interesting fellow was the Harrison Smith take on J.J. McCarthy, and if you pass the Harrison Smith test, I think you're probably doing all right. So there's plenty of things that we just can't draw conclusions on. We don't know how quick he's going to process things in real time. We don't know what's going to happen when the play that Kevin O'Connell calls is not a good match for the defense that the other team puts on the field, and what can he do to correct that, or at least limit the damage and move on to the next play. And so those are things that we won't know until into the season probably. But I do think that even though J.J. McCarthy hasn't played in a regular season game, hasn't practiced during the regular season, there were a few things we can already say fairly definitively about him, and that's kind of what I emphasized on NFL Live. During your NFL Live appearance, did you ever use the words that apparently Adam Thielen has, that McCarthy's, quote, got it, end quote? I didn't use that phrase, but I think he was probably, it's a similar idea to the highfalutin personal magnetism phrase that I used, which I'm sure is not in many football playbooks, but I think it describes it accurately, and just kind of describes the respect that he seems to have from a lot of veteran players. And so maybe Thielen's referring to, he's got all the tools he needs to be a successful quarterback, but a lot of times when people say he's got it, the it is that sort of non-tangible level of leadership and of attitude and confidence and personality that, is mostly a neck up kind of thing, but it's half the battle of being a successful player at that particular position. Kevin Seifert covers the National Football League, more specifically the Vikings, for ESPN and ESPN.com, and presumably will join us again in the upcoming season, although contract negotiations can get rather tense this time of year. Going back to Jordan, the Addison story,
if indeed he's out 3 or whatever the amount of time he's out, who replaces him during at least that stretch at wide receiver?
I think the first person that comes to mind is Jalen Naylor, who I think he started 7 games last year, whether it was as number 2 or number 3 receiver. And so he would obviously be the next guy up at that position. It's T.J. Hawkinson. Maybe in theory, Jalen Naylor is the number 2 receiver, but T.J. Hawkinson could be the number 2 most targeted person after Justin Jefferson. So for those fantasy people out there, I always caution them to think about the bigger picture there in terms of where the ball is going to go. But I think in terms of the receiver position, the strong likelihood there is Jalen Naylor.
Did I miss something? Did Randy Moss make some kind of a proclamation about JJ I'm talking about Justin Jefferson, the receiver, that I missed, or did I dream that?
I think he was interviewed about receivers. I don't know that if he made a comment about Justin Jefferson, I didn't see it. I know he's expressed a lot of respect and to my knowledge, no bitterness at all that Justin Jefferson's coming and has already broken many of the records that Randy Moss set early in his career. And so I think he thinks very highly of him. But if he said anything viral, I did not see that.
All right, I think I found it here. Let me see if I can read it specifically. This was in a recent conversation with TMZ, one of your favorite outlets. I think Justin Jefferson is on pace to be arguably the greatest ever and definitely the greatest Viking to ever do it. It goes on to say, I've always been a fan of a complete football player where you can score from anywhere in the field, and Justin brings that to the table. It's an interesting way for him to characterize it because I think he's kind of nailed what JJ represents in that regard, right? It is, because I think I would still make the argument that at certain things, Randy Moss is always going to be better, but as a package, in terms of all kinds of routes, anywhere on the field, that to me that's what speaks to Jefferson's strength as a receiver.
And it does. And, if he becomes the greatest Viking of all time, it could be a matter of spending his entire career with the Vikings as opposed to Randy spending some of the most productive years of his career and with the Patriots. And so that will be interesting. And so I've never sensed anything but admiration from Randy about Justin, and that's good because if he does what he's on pace to do, Justin Jefferson is already, and I don't think we have said this enough. And this probably fed into my frustration a couple years ago when people wanted to trade him. Is that he has had statistically and otherwise probably, if not definitely, the best start to a career of any player at that position in the history of the game. You will not find anyone who has gotten to his especially his yardage and even his catches. In the time period that he's gotten to those milestones faster than he has. And so, he still has a long way to go to set NFL records because your guy, Jerry Rice, played until he was 62 years old, and set some records that are going to be very difficult for any receiver who doesn't play. In truth, for the kids, Jerry Rice played, I think, until he was 41 or 42. But, so it's going to make it very difficult for Justin Jefferson or anybody else to finish their careers with NFL records in catches or yards or touchdown passes or receptions. But there's not much that Justin Jefferson could have done more to put himself on pace or in position to be exactly what Randy Moss said in terms of one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time.
All right, so let's get to, training camp opens Monday, correct?
So some people are reporting Sunday,
okay.
But the first actual on-field stuff will be Wednesday. We'll be out there Tuesday for press conference. I see. Okay, Tuesday press conference. And our first day out there, I think we're at the Perch on Thursday is what Guardsy tells me, which is hard to believe, man. It definitely has come fast. I think part of it is for this, the second straight year, we've actually had a May in which there's been something to cover here. Again, the NBA playoffs, the Wolves making it to conference finals. So, and then I actually took a summer vacation
to Ireland. So that also kind of tightened things up. But it's like it's right upon us, and we'll have plenty of time to get to a lot of the specific issues beyond the ones we've covered today. More importantly, tell me about when all of you guys show up at the ESPN campus. What do they do with you? What is it like? A bunch of meetings where they're trying to lay down the law again? Is it a lot of bonding going on? What's the purpose of bringing you all back to campus?
Yeah, we it used to be every year that we would go back once a year and sort of everybody be in the same room together, all the 32 reporters or however many we have, all the editors, some of the big wigs at ESPN and management, and have big picture discussions about NFL coverage, and then have some brainstorm sessions about what kind of stories we want to do. We get some TV training because not all of us are as smooth as the people who come out of Syracuse University School of Journalism or what have you on TV. And so we get some of that. One year we even had somebody making note of our color palette and skin tones and what kind of clothes would fit best with that.
There you go.
And you better believe that I took those notes.
No, TV's visual.
Accordingly.
Yeah, I can't argue with it.
It's a visual medium.
It is. That's what we've learned.
And so then when we're there, we try our best to take advantage of the opportunities that there are to contribute to television and radio, and done all that, and the podcasting equipment that they have there. And they're happy to have us because in July, a lot of people are on vacation and they always need people to fill in. So it's a good time to be there. It's a good time to recharge your battery and get your mind straight for what this NFL season is going to look like, what the big themes are for both the league and the team, and how we're going to attack it. And so, in theory, we are ready to roll.
All right, I'm going to finish with two philosophical questions that might keep you up later tonight. I don't know. Here's the first. A man in Brazil claimed he needed to save his 4 children during a severe flood. Rescuers later discovered he was actually going back to rescue his 4 dogs left at his flooded home. Would Kevin Seifert risk doing the same?
6 years ago, I would have told you hell no. But since our COVID dog arrived, I would tell you absolutely. I don't think I will ever be in a position to have 4 dogs. My goodness, I can't even imagine it.
No.
But the one dog would be no different than any kids that I've ever had.
Interesting. That's a good answer. By the way, what breed of dog do you have? I don't know that I even remember.
We have a German Shepherd mix.
Wow.
So, but she's smaller than
the average
your typical German Shepherd, but she basically acts like one. So she is on guard 24/7, and when the bad guys drive by on the street,
she's on them.
Have it pretty good.
Well, is she approachable though? I mean, is she nice to the family?
To the family, yes.
Okay.
If she doesn't know you, then
you got a problem.
You might want to just take your time approaching.
Good warning. Here is the second philosophical question. Would you spend $70 on a pastrami sandwich?
And just pastrami? There's no like caviar on it?
No,
or something,
just pastrami and presumably, bread of some sort.
Highly unlikely.
Okay. That's a callback to our former newspaper had a story yesterday. The big mayoral convention is coming up, I think, at Target Center. Yeah. And somehow the menu came out, and the pastrami sandwich costs $70. Now, it may not anymore because there's been so much pushback. I'm trying to figure out. I just don't. I'm a sandwich guy, but I just don't think there's any sandwich that I'd be willing to pay $70 for. It just seems counterintuitive.
What if they sliced it perfectly? Would that change your particular
Well, that would help.
mind?
That would definitely help. There's no question about that. That would help. The chicken kebab, I think, was it was 55, maybe 45, and then the schnitzel sandwich was $65. I have no idea.
Sounds like there's just some political surcharges going on.
May well be.
I can't imagine what the quality itself is meriting those prices.
May well be. Thanks for catching up. Welcome back to town, and we will see you out at the Perch next week. Enjoy training camp now, officially right around the corner.
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate you. Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com. Top 5 at 5. Blakemore for the second consecutive day. What do we got?
We got a big NFL extension, and the Wolves missed out on another player.
Well,